Look at the setup of a top-tier chess tournament today. The professional spotlighting, the soundproof playing halls, the digital clocks tracking milliseconds. Millions of players plug into this massive global infrastructure every single day. But if you rewind 1,500 years, all of this vanishes. No international ratings, no grandmasters analyzing with AI, and no ticking clocks. What existed was only a single, highly localized idea, an idea born entirely on the ancient Indian subcontinent that would eventually conquer the world. To understand how this specific board game conquered the globe, we have to look at why it was created in the first place. Its original creators built it as a tool for survival and leadership, not a recreational sport. During the 6th century, in the era of the Gupta Empire, Indian society placed immense value on strategic planning. Physical strength was useful, but true power required foresight. Rulers needed a way to practice the mechanics of war, predicting enemy movements, organizing defenses, and calculating sacrifices, without actually spilling blood on a real battlefield. Their solution was a game called Chaturanga. In Sanskrit, chatur means 4, and anga means divisions. Together, it translates to the 4 divisions of the army. The board was populated by the specific military units that made up an Indian fighting force at the time. You had the infantry, the cavalry, chariots, and the heavy armor of the era, war elephants. Over the centuries, these ancient military divisions directly mapped onto the pieces we recognize today. The infantry became pawns, the cavalry turned into knights, the elephants evolved into bishops, and the chariots became rooks. Chaturanga functioned as a miniature battlefield. It taught commanders that every single sacrifice shaped future outcomes, and one tactical mistake could cost the entire campaign. A tool this useful didn't stay contained within India's borders. As merchants and scholars traveled along expanding global trade routes, they carried the board and its pieces westward into Persia and the Arabian Peninsula. When the game arrived in Persia, it absorbed the local culture and language. The Persians adopted the mechanics entirely, renaming the game Shatranj. They also updated the terminology to reflect their own political structure. The central figure to be protected was no longer an Indian Raja, he was the Persian Shah. If a player managed to corner the opposing ruler so he couldn't escape, they would announce Shah Mat, meaning the king is trapped or helpless. Say Shah Mat enough times across enough centuries, and it eventually anglicizes into the single most famous phrase in board gaming, checkmate. From the Islamic Golden Age, the game pushed further west, eventually embedding itself in medieval Europe. Up until this point, the core movement rules had remained fairly static, but European courts had different power structures and pacing preferences, which forced a literal rewriting of how the pieces moved across the board. Originally, the elephant piece could only jump 2 squares at a time. The Europeans rebranded it as the bishop and unlocked its range, allowing it to slide across the entire diagonal of the board in a single turn. Even more drastically, the king's advisor was transformed into the queen. Instead of moving just 1 square diagonally, she grew into the most dominant piece on the board, capable of commanding vast amounts of territory in any direction. These adjustments eliminated the slow, methodical buildup required by the ancient rules. Players could now launch devastating attacks in the opening minutes of a match. The rulebook we use today acts as a living historical record. It captures the exact era when a methodical ancient war simulation was accelerated into a high-speed tactical sport. Today, competitive chess is a sprawling global industry. Yet for centuries, India experienced a strange historical irony. Despite inventing the underlying logic of the game, the nation produced relatively few world champions as the sport outgrew its creator. That long drought ended with Vishwanathan Anand. Becoming India's first grandmaster in 1988, he competed on the global stage and secured 5 World Chess Championship titles. His individual success acted as a catalyst. Millions of Indian children watched Anand claim world titles, and an entire generation suddenly saw a future in a game their ancestors had designed. Fast forward to today, and that generation has grown up to aggressively take over the sport. Players like Gukesh D are actively breaking records and defeating established veterans. Ultimately, Anand's career achieved a distinct cultural milestone. He successfully reclaimed India's ownership of its greatest cultural export. You can see the results of this momentum at any international Olympiad today. Young Indian stars like Pragnananda consistently dismantle the world's most sophisticated defenses under immense pressure. And this wave of talent spans across both open and women's divisions, with champions like Vaishali Rameshbabu proving how deeply the game has rerouted itself across the country's modern culture. When these players sit down at the board, they are operating at the end of an unbroken 1,500-year timeline that traces directly back to the Gupta royal courts. Thousands of ancient inventions, weapons, and philosophies have been completely lost to time. Very few human creations survive a millennium and a half of constant cultural change. Chess belongs to the world now. But every time a pawn is pushed, on any board, we are continuing an ancient Indian tradition.